Welcome back to Nightmare Logic, the podcast where we discuss the theory and practice of horror, and we practice the theory. We're your hosts, Christopher Smith
and Peter Sawyer.
Get ready to take some notes because we're going to go through every subgenre of horror.
Hopefully.
All right, Peter, here we go again. What's new with you?
Back for the first time. I'm riding high. We've mentioned horror trivia on this podcast before. It's called Dead Right Horror Trivia, and it happens in Burbank every Thursday. Not every Thursday, what am I talking about? Every month, usually on the third Thursday. And our team won a round last night, so morale is back. We won a round about Tom Noonan, who sadly recently passed, and they had a tribute round on him. If you're not familiar with who he was a character actor in movies like Manhunter and Monster Squad and RoboCop 2, Last Action Hero, and a few other, kind of movies like that.
Yeah. I wasn't that familiar with him, but I looked him up when he died, and I realized, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's in a lot of things, and once you know who he is, you'd recognize him.
Yeah.
More recently, I guess he was in House of the Devil, was a later one that I can think of in late phases.
Well, it's cool that you guys won a round. I've been a few times in the past, and I know that it's really hard to win a round in there because there's so many people who know so much, have such deep knowledge of horror. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. They had a big Scream round and did not win that one.
I remember one round, it was like they play 5 seconds of horror cues, all from the year 2002, like horror theme music. And, but like deep cuts, like the remake of Wicker Man or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And people know them, like they get 10 out of 10 correct and double down. And yeah, it's crazy.
It's a fun time. So if you live in the Southern California area, it's worth checking out. Even if you don't have a team, you can always sub on teams because a lot of the time people need that.
Yep. Yeah. And, interestingly enough, I came across this rumor that Stranger Things might be dropping a movie in 2027, which this was, let's just say it's a rumor and truly just a rumor. I don't actually think there's any truth to it. It started when this entertainment gossip account called Deux Moi posted something on Instagram that they got like an anonymous tip about it. And they just posted the anonymous tip, a screenshot of it, and it kind of like took off. And now people are saying that there's going to be a film in 2027, but it's unlikely for a number of reasons, namely that the Duffer Brothers are now contracted to Paramount starting next year, and the cast probably isn't going to want to return, and also it takes way too long to make a film. There's no way it would be done in 2027 anyways. So
I mean, they did that for Breaking Bad, right? They El Camino. I
True.
mean, that was years after Breaking Bad was over, I believe. I don't know how many years, I can't remember, and that was more of like an offshoot as opposed to a Walter White story.
True. It could be some kind of like prelude, or like spin-off kind of a thing.
Right. Because I mean, anything that makes money, they're just going to keep trying to make money off.
Yeah,
of
I'm
it.
sure they would love to like cash in, but also it just came off like this season that's like basically 7 films. So, I don't know that they're going to jump back in that fast. But it'd be interesting, watch this space,
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen anything good recently, Chris?
This week, I mostly, I've watched some things, nothing really in the sort of horror genre world, mostly because I was watching it with my fiance who's not into this stuff. But, we actually, I will say the new episode of Knights of the Seven Kingdoms was pretty, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is pretty amazing. It's just like one brutal slog of a battle.
Okay, I'm into it. I mean, my favorite episode of that's for those who don't know, it's based off Game of Thrones, right? It's connected.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the world.
My favorite episode of Game of Thrones is the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah.
The choreography for like those fight sequences was mind blowing.
Yep. It's a lot like that. That's one thing that's great about that series is they really don't try to, a lot of fantasy, particularly in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and stuff, there's always, they portray battle as this thing where you're like, it's spin around and you stab someone and you move on to the next and you stab someone and there's no like cost to it to the main
Right.
character. But like this is like just brutal, like dirty, bloody, gruesome, nobody gets out unscathed kind of a battle, you know?
Was it claustrophobic?
Yeah.
Because
And they use really great sound design in it. And like, I mean, it takes place in like just a foot of mud.
oh wow,
Yeah. It's like, and which is probably more accurate because like, honestly, in those kind of battles, when you have like horses and people and stuff, the ground is just
yeah, it
turns to
gets
mud.
torn up. All right. Well,
Yeah, worth checking out. I actually think it's a really great series. It's more contained than the original Game of Thrones. It's a smaller scale. It all takes place in this one village so far, but it's like really uh, equally as compelling in a lot of ways. So,
right on. I don't doubt it's amazing. I
and last
enjoyed
thing I want to mention is that I heard that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre TV show is happening. And the producer of it, Roy Lee, I guess he was involved with it Chapter 2, Barbarian and Weapons,
Yeah,
A24 series. Anyways, it's about the Sawyer family.
my family, my people.
Yeah, yeah. Peter's last name is Sawyer. I guess he comes from Leatherface's family. But I guess it's like they revealed a little more information about it. I guess it's going to be kind of the life of Leatherface when he was like more of a kid and like how it turned into the family
Right.
dynamic it did.
So, I guess I have two thoughts on that. One is maybe that's fun to explore, but when you look at like what Rob Zombie did to Halloween and they went into Michael Myers' backstory, it kind of ruins it because it's like a mystery,
Right.
which is part of the appeal. But then again, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has also had so many sequels and all this stuff that like they're just looking for a new angle on it, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a little more character driven, and it's going to be all about execution, right? There's a lame version of it, and then there's like, oh, this is actually adds to it, right? Because you see the sort of formative experiences that drives somebody to like become.
Right. Yeah, I
But
mean, you never know until it's done, and then everyone's gonna have their own opinions on these things.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause-
we'll file that away to be judged when it comes out.
right, and I know they're doing the Friday the 13th series as well. I don't know enough about what that entails,
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
but it's probably similar.
Yeah, I guess it is actually. It mentioned in the article I read, which we'll post on the show notes. It mentioned that series, and it's also about his like
Child before
upbringing or
right.
whatever. Great. So we got a couple potentially awesome films coming out this week that people should check out.
All right, hit me.
The first one is Psycho Killer, which we talked about a couple of these in our looking forward to 2026 episode. But Psycho Killer, directed by Gavin Polone, written by Andrew Kevin Walker. It stars Georgina Campbell, James Preston Rogers, Malcolm McDowell. And it's about a police officer, a woman who tracks a killer after her husband, a highway patrolman, becomes one of his victims. And so far, the trailer looks compelling, but it's kind of got, I'd say, mixed reviews up to this point. But I'd probably still check it out.
I'm curious about it. I like not knowing much about it, so that I if you haven't picked up from this podcast, I like going in blind for a lot of things, or if it's just like a very simple premise that's just okay, I got to see that.
Yeah.
And this, I think, it has kind of both.
Totally. Yeah, I think I did read some of the criticisms, and I think that the main complaint really is just that it's, I guess, nothing new or something. Like it's not that it's bad. It's just sort of like, something you've seen before or something like that. I don't know, but I'm gonna check it out. I encourage other people to. And then Redux is coming out.
Oh shit! Okay.
Apparently that's how it's pronounced.
Okay, cool. That's right.
And I actually heard NPR does Film Week on Fridays here in LA, and they bring on some critics to discuss everything coming out, and they discussed this, and both the critics both loved it, and it sounds like it's gonna be really great. They say it's one of those stories kind of like Primer, where it's kind of low budget, but the concept and the execution is just really satisfying. So Redux is directed by Kevin McManus, starring Michaela McManus, Stella Marcus, Jeremy Holm, and Its logline is Irene Kelly travels through parallel universes, repeatedly killing her daughter's murderer. As she becomes consumed by vengeance, her humanity hangs in the balance. And, the trailer does look pretty awesome.
I'm not watching the trailer. I'm hooked on the idea. Like
Great.
as a plot guy, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool
Nice.
idea.
Nice. So This Is a Test is coming, or sorry, This Is Not a Test is also coming out. And this is directed by Adam McDonald, written by Adam McDonald and Courtney Summers, starring Luke McFarlane, Missy Peregrine, Olivia Holt. And this follows a character named Sloane and 4 other students who take shelter in their high school during a zombie outbreak. And apparently this is getting somewhat decent reviews and looks interesting. I don't know much about it besides that.
Okay. I mean, I'm always a sucker for zombie movies.
Yeah.
So I'll probably check that out.
And the last one I'm going to mention is called The Dreadful. And according to reviews, it's supposedly dreadful, but it might be appeal to some of you. And it's directed by Natasha Kermani. I think that's how you say her name. And she previously directed VHS 85. And it stars Sophie Turner and Kit Harington of Game of Thrones fame, as we were just discussing, and Marcia Gay Harden. So The Dreadful follows Anne and her mother-in-law, Morwen, who live in a solitary, harsh life on the outskirts of society. This is back in medieval times. But when a man from their past returns, he will set off a sequence of events that become a turning point for Anne. So it's currently sitting at a 55 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't pay attention to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that's like the worst of all ones.
I've seen the trailer for this actually. I thought it looked interesting. It's intriguing. It doesn't look like a straight up capital H horror movie.
Exactly, yeah.
But it looks like a medieval, dark, mysterious. Like this could go any which way.
Right, with like some kind of supernatural aspect to it. But
right. I'm curious. Well, there's another movie I wanted to mention that's coming out, and I don't have the date, but it just came across my, I don't know, algorithm, if you will, that just looks fucking wild. It's called Slanted. It's done by
I think early March 6th or something like that.
Could be. I'm on the IMDb page, and it's not saying, so it's kind of putting me in a awkward position here. But it's written and directed by Amy Wang, and the logline is an insecure Chinese American teenager undergoes experimental surgery to appear white, hoping to secure the prom queen title in pure acceptance. But you get a sense from the trailer that this procedure is going to have some gnarly side effects.
Mm-hmm.
But just from watching the trailer, the movie looks like it has balls. Like I'm like, dude, you're stepping in it, and I'm here for that because they caught my attention. But I'm just like, fuck yeah, bring it.
Yeah, and so that's confirmed. That comes out March 13th.
Cool. I will be there for that.
Yes. All right, well, let's transition to the main topic of discussion today, which Peter is going to lead us through because he did all the research.
Okay, people. So the concept for this kind of came about because I think texting with my friend Brian Kasich, who is encyclopedic with horror movies and whatnot. He's like me, way into the genre. And I was making a joke about how sometimes you come across people, this is more so when I was like a teenager or in my early 20s, and I'd ask them, be like, oh, you start talking movies, and you're like, what's your favorite kind of movie? And they would say some shit like foreign films. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, they probably mean a movie like My Life as a Dog or
like an indie foreign.
The Sound of Music or something like that. But I'm like, yeah, that could be a Serbian film. That could be Martyrs. That could be all these transgressive movies.
Right. It's a broad category.
Right. And so Brian was like, Peter, it's not a genre, it's a category. And I was like, touche. That is a category. But it doesn't tell you, it makes you sound pretentious, like, or elitist by saying something kind of, even if that's your favorite thing, it's like, be more specific.
Yeah. I think when people say foreign films, though, they're really talking about foreign dramas, which tend to be indie films by definition, because most films abroad are lower budget than, they don't really have the Hollywood deep pockets.
You gotta get specific. But So
like art house foreign films, I guess.
yeah, but that could still also, you could also make the argument that like Martyrs is that.
I don't disagree with you.
So,
I'm just translating what these people normally would.
so I think leading into this topic, I think it's worth breaking down categories of movies and then breaking down subgenres of horror. So let's do an exercise real quick. If you clear your mind and imagine streaming is dead, and all of a sudden there's a boom of video stores cropping back up. I think a lot of people would be stoked on
I'd be
this.
stoked about that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they have VHS, whatever, but you'd be Blu-rays, 4Ks, whatever the next iteration of that is. And you would have your blockbusters, but you get one that pops up called Nightmare Logic that specializes in horror. Now, how would you organize that? It seems like it would be like the most fun and biggest nightmare to do, because you could do it alphabetical, but that's not, you go into Blockbuster, it's done by genre. So fuck that. You could do it by directors, but not all directors are prolific. So you would probably do it in subgenre. So if you took a movie like The Thing, you'd be like, okay, it's a horror movie. It's a sci-fi horror movie. Wait, no, it's a body horror. No, it's technically a siege. So like it got me thinking, it's like, well, there's a lot of movies that kind of cross over into different subgenres. And
well, it just goes to age-old problem of like humans, we like to categorize things and put them in boxes, and some things
totally
can't be put in a box.
Yeah, there's movies without homes, right? But it's interesting to think about, because it just goes to show how many different kinds of subgenres there are. And so it's might be fun to go through. So if we want to start with categories, these are the ones that I thought about that lend themselves to horror, but they could totally be the opposite of that. So you have black and white films, right? Category. Live action, that's a typical movie. Found footage, that lends itself to horror. Foreign, you have the different ones that are rated, R, PG, PG-13G, whatever. Art house, feminist, silent, independent, studio, cult, exploitation, those tend to lend themselves to horror. Animated, anthology, also kind of horror has a monopoly on that usually. Self-contained, single location, remakes, prequels, sequels, musicals, satire. You could say midnight movies. Those were specific from the 70s that kind of birthed cult and grindhouse stuff.
Well, and a lot of that is, they still, like a lot of film festivals have midnight sections.
Yeah, which is probably like a nod.
It's a catch-all, really, for a lot of this
to that
stuff.
Yeah, because it's generally genre stuff. Like you could say like The Warriors, Night of the Living Dead. There is Hong Kong category 3 that's getting specific, but that was like came about in the late 80s for a period of years where they would make just fucking batshit movies that were shocking graphic violence, nudity. I think it's the 6th or 7th Curse with Chow Yun-fat is one of them. I'm screwing up the title, I apologize. Riki-Oh is another one, but that's like a martial art movie that's extremely gory. Okay, so let's get into the subgenres, and I will give you a couple examples, along the way. A lot of these are self-explanatory. Probably the most popular subgenre of horror seems to be slasher. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was. It's basically people are getting slashed up, right? I don't think there's too much of a definition to it.
Yeah.
But you can expect people getting murdered.
Usually like there's the final girl.
Yeah, that's become a trope that comes out of that, especially. You have your Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, supernatural one. A deeper cut would be Just Before Dawn, early 80s one that I thought was pretty interesting.
Do you like slashers?
So I kind of swore them off because I was like, these are all the same fucking thing.
They're usually very light on story.
But then I got into watching some that I had not seen as a kid, and I was like, no, they're fun. Like they do have a charm that I like.
Totally, like the gore. Some people love gore, and there's a lot of that. Well, they can't. I mean, some of them don't have that much gore, but I feel like to stand out these days, it's all about the gore.
Right. Like I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, is a genius because it's kids can't go to sleep because what's in their nightmare is going to kill them. So I think that's a really interesting angle on that.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to it gets old when it's a dude with a mask and a weapon coming after you. But
Right.
if you can do it differently, more power to you. You have In a Violent Nature, which was a different meditation on that recently. So that's slasher. Another one is psychological horror, which is, I think, basically a mind fuck, blurring reality with what isn't perceived to be real or losing one's mind. So Psycho would work, Altered States, Jacob's Ladder, Triangle is kind of a deeper cut on that.
Directed by Chris Smith, not me, but a different one.
Who did which one?
Triangle.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You can take credit. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think he's actually a different one than the other very well-known documentary filmmaker named Chris Smith. This is why I go by Christopher Smith for all you out there listening, because there's a lot of us.
Right.
But also, this is the same category or the same subgenre, I should say, that Last Call is in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd cross over into that too. A lot of things are, and it's
just so you know, I should say for those just tuning in for the first time, Last Call is a short film that Peter and I have recently finished, 20-minute long psychological thriller, horror.
Well, maybe thriller. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's on the festival circuit right now. We tend to reference it sometimes, but yeah, that would fall into this category, I think.
But what's interesting is like if you think of psychological horror, there's also psychological thriller, and how to tell them apart. It can be hard because the tropes of both play to both genres. However, a psychological horror might feel unresolved, whereas a thriller has more of a satisfying conclusion. If you look at the movie Seven, right, that's not considered horror, but it really feels like one for good reason. In the end, I think kind of does both, which is why it's so well regarded. Like it's an unsettling ending, but it also is very satisfying because it concludes the whole.
I kind of feel like those two genres kind of the line is very blurry for sure.
It is, but so that's that psychological, and that overlaps with so many types of movies.
What about folk horror?
The next one, folk horror, horror with folklore and pagan themes, often set in the countryside. So you have Wicker Man, The Witch, Oddity, deeper cut I like is Wakewood. Chris, you mentioned Midsummer earlier.
Midsummer, yeah, definitely. And I mean, even the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a witch one, but that's folk. I think that falls in folk, right?
Yeah. Folk horror usually lands in the woods. Like it has a big,
right.
That's a motif.
Right. And dealing with, either religious or occult themes of different cultures that we're not as familiar with.
Right.
Or more ancient
and sometimes it's kind of like a stranger in a strange land. You get an outsider that's coming to some place where things are just a little off and they're not picking up on why. The next subgenre is giallo. I can never say that right, which is Italian horror thrillers that were like an artistic take on slashers, but they're steeped in more mystery and sexploitation.
Very Italian.
Yeah. So some examples are Blood and Black Lace, Deep Red, Bay of Blood. They were around mainly from the 60s to the 80s.
And because is it named after a director?
Giallo means yellow.
Huh.
Like, and I don't know what the correlation is. I'm not super into them. I don't dislike them when I watch them, but it's usually a guy with black gloves and a knife that is a mysterious killer in it. And they're not all the same. Don't get me wrong. But they just are, it's like similar in that slashers kind of are like, what you're getting in a sense.
Right.
But they're very popular. Dario Argento is,
I say Argento's. Yeah, that makes
associated
sense.
with them. I think he's probably the most associated with them. The next is kind of a category and I don't know if you'd call it a genre. I hate the phrasing. It's quote unquote elevated horror, which is a newer label that refers to themes of grief and trauma with more of an artistic approach. It's often associated with A24 films. So this calls for a little bit of a tangent because I have a opinion on it.
Peter and I don't always. I'm a fan of like more elevated horror films, and Peter's not. He's not that he's not a fan. You're just. Why don't you say what you're?
I think that calling something elevated is some highfalutin framing to make critics feel like their taste in horror is high art while snubbing anything else.
Well,
that-
there might be some truth to that. That doesn't mean the films are bad.
No, but I'm just saying, like, categorizing something is like it's elitist, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, I kind of feel like it's more of a category than a genre.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's
a horror category.
but it didn't just come out of the early 2012 with It Follows. Like there's movies that were doing this type of stuff before.
Of course.
It just became in vogue, and A24 picked up on a lot of those movies. And don't get me wrong, I like It Follows. I like a lot of these movies, but I would prefer it to be called post horror, because that it's
Post-
not. That it's like Chris and I were talking about this before. I was like, all right, I always compare horror to punk rock, and post punk. If you hear that, you can hear the punk in it, but it's not. It's kind of almost more mature. It's not as abrasive, and I think post horror films.
Yeah, you could just sub out the word elevated for mature.
But that would turn me off.
I think of it more as intellectual, which also sounds elitist or whatever, but it's appealing more to that part of your brain, a little more logical, a little more, or playing with logic, and a little more like rooted in like academic and more like thoughtfulness, as opposed to appealing more to your like fear and fun, just like more like bodily sensations,
I suppose. I mean, I guess it's a case by case as what's considered in this. I was looking this up earlier, and Art House on Wikipedia had a list of art house horror films, and some of them I'm like, I don't feel like that. Like Talk to Me doesn't strike me as
they said that was art house.
Yeah,
I wouldn't buy that for 1 second.
but I mean, I don't know who's editing that, but it's A24, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe they're just defining it as like films that would play in art house cinemas, but I feel like that's all horror, mostly speaking, because like it's all not all, but most of it is fairly low, like indie,
right. But what's interesting, and this is my theory, is like, so you had this big wave of these movies that came out and are still kind of coming out, and then you have Terrifier coming out, which is this total splatter slasher, clown horror that feels like a complete reaction to it, and is thriving. So it's interesting when you look at trends of these things, that one thing will then
right. Well, that's what's interesting about horror as a genre, and why there's so many subgenres, right? Is like there's a wide range of people who are into horror as a genre that like different things, but also I think most horror fans kind of like all the different subgenres. It's like this interesting world where you can kind of play and experiment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could go through any of these, and there'd be a movie I'd like.
Yeah,
and there'd also be movies I wouldn't like.
Totally.
But yeah, it's horror casts a wide net. The next subgenre is torture porn, which lingers on graphic, violent atrocities where characters suffer. Right. So
there's unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot to do with porn. It's more to do with torture.
Well, it's the idea is it's meditating on this
for people who get off the
the
torture.
So those, you think of Saw, you think of Hostel. Eden Lake counts as that, I would guess. And then it's interesting if you think of like Martyrs and Hellraiser, because those have themes of suffering, but they don't quite exploit it like the subgenre suggests. Even Misery, for example, but with the hobbling scene.
I was going to say Misery, because
for that, but it's not rooted.
But is that even a horror? That could be a thriller,
Yeah, that's kind of blurs those lines.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think of that. The next is horror sci-fi.
One of my favorite genres that I feel like is criminally underappreciated, or like not enough films in this genre.
Well, there are. Sometimes it's, I don't know. It's weird, because it's like if you have an alien movie, then it's an alien movie. You don't think of it as a sci-fi movie as much. But
yeah, I'm thinking like Event Horizon. Like there's both evil supernatural, but in a sci-fi context.
Right. A lot of time, I think they have like a big paranoia is a theme from a lot of them. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one. Alien, The Blob. A more recent kind of deeper cut is Spring that I highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean like The Thing. There's countless
Yeah.
Sci-fi horror.
Yeah, I think
movies.
of movies like Alien as, it's an alien movie, but really it's a creature feature.
It's that too. It's cross-pollinating. The next is horror comedy. Those movies are played for laughs and scares.
Yep.
When they're good, the balance is kind of fun. So, I mean, you could say Lost Boys is one, Return of the Living Dead. I would even say Dream Scenario, Boys from County Hell,
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. Yeah. And would you say Shaun of the Dead is also a satire?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it yeah. Yeah.
It kind of,
Yeah. I mean, it takes a piss out of zombie films, but like, it doesn't, it's not saying anything about culture larger either.
right.
I don't think, but
The thing I will say about horror comedies is a lot of times, sadly, they are not scary or funny. They're kind of like middle of the road. So it's like when they're good, I will celebrate the hell out of
yeah,
them.
I think the sweet spot there is fun.
Yeah, they're
You know,
usually fun. It's
like I think we saw like 25 years ago together. We saw Warm Bodies or something like that.
I have not seen Warm Bodies.
Was it? Maybe it wasn't Warm Bodies. We saw a film together that was like
Idle Hands.
I remember Idle Hands.
That's horror comedy.
Yeah, maybe I saw Warm Bodies without you, but that reminds me of that movie, which I actually did quite enjoy. It's almost like a romantic comedy, but zombie.
Yeah.
You know?
I've seen a part of it. I saw it on like cable.
Yeah.
That was referenced at horror trivia last night, actually, for Valentine's Day. So the next horror subgenre is horror thriller. In my opinion, it's kind of the best of both worlds in that they're high stake horror movies that move fast and the suspense is cranked. So you have like The Evil Dead, One Dark Night, Demons, the Italian movie, Mute Witness, the movie that takes place in Russia.
I would kill to see a Safdie brothers film in this world.
That would be interesting for them to do that because you have a panic attack watching any of those.
I mean, I have a panic attack just watching Adam Sandler try to sell gems, like.
Yeah. I mean, that's suspense on fucking speed. Road horror is kind of a more niche one, but it's self-explanatory. It takes place on the road, right? So Race with the Devil, The Hitcher, Black Cadillac. There's a 2008 movie Hush that I like. It's a British horror film where, someone's fucking with you on the road.
Would you think The Duel falls into this category?
Yeah, I mean, people might say it's more
thriller than
thriller,
horror,
but
yeah.
it's that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Duel is one of my favorite Spielberg movies, by the way. The next one is eco horror, which is when nature gets its revenge and attacks people. It's synonymous with like animal attacks because usually it's like, all right, the birds, right?
Like Anaconda or
well, with Anaconda, maybe I think of when it's like multiple insects or multiple.
Right. Like that. I remember as a kid watching this horror called Ants or the Ants or something like that. Terrified me, and it was like all about just like the swarm of ants killing people in some research station or something. I barely remember it.
Yeah, but it leaves an impact because it's like the ants are real.
I mean, I've never liked ants since. I'll be honest.
Kingdom of the Spiders is another one.
Yeah, or Arachnophobia, or
The Long Weekend is a.
There's actually a number of these coming out right now. There's like Shiver. There's another Arachnophobia like movie, a French movie called Fang. I forget what it's called right now.
There was Sting that came out last year, the year before.
No, this is a new one. It's all in French. They like infest an apartment block.
That's already out. I think it's called Infested. Infested. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wild movie.
Did you see it?
I did.
Yeah, cool.
It was good. To me, my criticism is when you have something like that, you're in it and it just keeps repeating a lot of the same beats. It can feel very repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, I have that problem with a lot of like slasher, there's a number of these subgenres that I think like
do that.
Yeah. I mean, if done poorly.
Right. And it's not done poorly. Like it's got that adrenaline to it, but it's just when you see a lot of movies, you start to pick up on stuff.
I mean,
like
the original, Arachnophobia like I haven't seen it in probably 25 years, but like it still holds a place in my mind as like I
Oh
remember it
yeah.
just being like kind of terrifying, but also a really good film.
Yeah, well, that also kind of fits into comedy horror because
Yeah.
there's comedy.
It's lighthearted for sure.
Yeah, I saw that with my mom in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, and it was night or driving back. I don't know how old I was when it came out, and there was a cricket in the car that jumped on me.
She's like, that's the last time I take you to a horror movie.
That shit was insane.
That's funny.
So it was kind of fun. So after eco horror or animals attacks, we got Evil Children. Again, self-explanatory. I don't know if the Bad Seed is considered the first one, but that goes back, I think, to the
Child's
50s.
Play. I mean, that's technically not a kid, I guess.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, that's not the evil kid, but
Right.
it's The Omen. You have Damien, Village of the Damned. A movie I absolutely swear by. Who Can Kill a Child? That is terrifying and eerie and deals with the evil kid things.
What about Children of the Corn?
It's kind of similar to that, but it's a bit more eerie.
Right.
It's
But would that fit with Children of the Corn? fit in the
yes,
genre? Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah. I think now being a father, it's funny when I think about, film concepts. I've started gravitating towards the evil children a lot recently. And it's not because my kid's evil, though. If he's hungry, he can be that way. But like, just because when you become a parent, you see the world now in a slightly different way, and you see the sort of vulnerability in being a parent and having children in a different way, and it's like you could totally see the ripeness for horror. I also totally avoid movies where children are at
In
risk
danger.
now.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have friends exactly like that.
Yeah.
Brightburn's an interesting one because that's basically if it's like evil Superman as a kid. That's a brutal movie too.
Yeah.
So I think you guys get the point. The next one is horror musicals, right? Musicals with a horror backdrop. Phantom of the Opera is probably the OG on this. Rocky Horror Picture Show is one, I guess you could say. Little Shop of Horrors, Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
Nightmare
exist.
Before Christmas. if
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah,
I actually got a curveball for you.
yeah, hit me.
Cannibal the Musical.
Yeah, the South Park dudes, right?
Yeah.
Trauma.
They did it as their college thesis film at my alma mater, University of Colorado. And that's basically our one claim to fame. Well, I didn't go to film school there, but the film school's one claim to fame is the Trey and Matt Stone.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's fun. When I was in high school, this was before South Park was out. Like copies of the first episode that I guess caught George Clooney's attention made their way through college campuses. So this kid Forbes had that, and my friend Alex and I went and we put it on, and we were like, "Holy shit, this is insane!" And like a year and a half later, it was on Comedy Central.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the other exception, I mean, they're not really, he's not an alum, but he teaches there, which is Alex Cox.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
he's kind of there. I mean, he's kind of old now, so maybe he doesn't work there anymore, but he did for a while.
Right on. Okay, the next topic or next subgenre, and I'm sure you've heard of this, is body horror, which is practically any David Cronenberg movie, in other words.
Also really hot right now.
David Cronenberg?
No, body horror.
Yeah, it's you're seeing a lot of it. It's where, something disturbing is happening to someone's body. Usually, The Brood, speaking of Cronenberg, The Thing, The Substance, Society is a pretty wild one if you haven't seen that. And I mean, but you could also say like any werewolf movie could count. Same with vampire or zombie, though it's not usually quite focused on the horror of the transformation. But
Yeah, when we're done recording, let me tell you about my body horror concept.
okay, I'm all ears. So after body horror, we got supernatural, which is definitely an umbrella term for anything that's not science fiction or fantasy per se. Beyond nature, leaning into ghosts, impossible phenomena that's accepted. So practically anything where it's not a man or monster or sci-fi horror movie, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's probably more about it being, when you combine genres, this is like, like a large swath of horror films are
Supernatural.
supernaturally based, but they're also fall in other genres.
Right. I know when I was younger, I felt like horror movies had to be supernatural to be horror
Right.
movies. So like, but then you look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you're like, well, you would say that's a horror movie.
Right.
But someone would be like, Green Room is not. And I could see that as well.
Well, that's a thriller.
Right. But it's got the gore of a horror and
Right.
feels like one. So yeah, supernatural horror movie. So getting into that, we could look at ghost stories, paranormal, also an umbrella term that's
Mhm.
more specific to ghosts or haunted houses. Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, The Fog, The Changeling are all like pretty classic
Mhm.
ghost story paranormal movies.
Question for you though.
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, you can have ghost stories that aren't horrors too, which is interesting.
Of course.
You can't have slashers that aren't horror, but you can have ghost stories that aren't horrors.
You could probably do some comedy version of slasher.
But it'd still be a horror.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you have to get really creative. like an anti-horror slasher.
Well, I mean, you could say like, like the version of that might be like Sweeney Todd, right? Like or Dexter, but
it's still, yeah. I mean, it's macabre enough to be horror.
you would at least call
That's
it like a horror.
That's a great point.
You know, a horror drama. Or something.
I'll have to think on this, but there might be something like that. That's I don't know. So we got vampires, obviously self-explanatory. Dracula, 30 Days a Night, Let the Right One In. Vamp is kind of a fun.
Would Let the Right One In also be a creepy child one?
Yeah, I think it would count. It's not, you wouldn't think of it the same way, but I think
it's like a
technicality,
blended genre.
Yeah,
like a crossover.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I even like the remake of it, Let Me In, and the book. Then we got zombies, right? Self-explanatory. What George Romero redefined. Night of the Living Dead's kind of the go-to blueprint for a lot of zombie movies. But I will say not all zombie movies are just hordes of the undead. Serpent in the Rainbow, Pet Sematary are also other takes on zombie stories.
Well, not to mention The Last of Us and Silent Hill and or Resident Evil.
What's
the one where they the fungus is it
that's
Evil?
The Last of Us.
Well, there's The Last of Us, but it's also in Silent Hill or Resident Evil, one of those two.
They do that in the Resident Evil games. Resident Evil, I think, kind of started mainly with a big focus on zombies, but it was
right.
Has obviously gone well.
Right, yeah, it's Resident Evil, right? But anyways, yeah, I think that's what you're seeing lately in zombie films, right? Is like the need to explain where the zombies come from, and so you're getting more creative, like causes of the zombie. Like, is it a virus? Is it a fungus? Is it a whatever? You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, zombies are just, I don't know. They're. I feel like that you can always make zombie movies, but the trick is to do something interesting and different with them, which can be challenging.
Definitely. I mean, that's true with a lot of these more traditional ones like vampires and, you know, like ghost stories even, you know.
Right. Well, the fun thing about zombies is when 28 Days Later came out, people will and still, I'm sure, argue if that's a zombie movie because they're not actually dead, right?
Fair enough.
So but I don't know why you'd get so passionate over that, even though I'm sure at one point
I think you would classify it as that because, you know, being a zombie is less, I guess is what we're getting at through this conversation, is less about, even though we have traditionally thought of them as the undead, it's more this like idea of this sort of like once human, now soulless and like kind of not in your right mind and like lots of them. You know,
right?
So I feel like you can plug in the details around that, but that's kind of the core of what a zombie film is.
I feel like I've seen this touched on, and I'm sure it's crossed lots of people's minds, is like, you know, where zombies walking around looking at fucking iPhones, right? But I don't think I've seen a movie that's really parodied that the whole way through,
right?
Though maybe that's out there or someone's working on it. Okay, so after zombies, what do we got? We got werewolves, another self-explanatory subgenre. You have American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Silver Bullet, Dog Soldiers. They're always cool when done well because the transformation is like what makes or breaks these things often.
Right. I'm actually working on a werewolf script myself.
Really?
Yeah. It's called at the moment. Werewolves of Mount Washington, coming to a theater near you in about 7 years.
Okay, keep an eye for it. The next subgenre is cannibal, right? The Hills Have Eyes, We Are What We Are, Bones and All. And there's also horror western is another subgenre that falls into this with the cannibals. And cannibals just fucked me up, man. Like it's such a disturbing phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so transgressive. Like Night of
It's
the
very
Living Dead.
taboo to eat another person.
Well, Night of the Living Dead, as a little kid, when I watched that, it's not cannibals, but it's eating people, right? And the scene with the daughter killing matricide, killing her mom, and gonna eat the mom. Yeah, like like that shit's pretty heavy. So the next one we have is clowns. Again, self-explanatory, as a lot of these are.
I fucking hate clowns. And let me tell you, not this genre. I just don't. They do nothing for me. Either scary. I mean, I'm scared of them just because as a kid, like not scared as like terrified, but scared as in like they're just something weird, and I don't like them.
I mean, that's what's kind of interesting, right? They're for kids, but they look creepy as shit.
Yeah, but they're also like cliche. I don't know. I just not a fan of the genre, I guess.
Well, you got your It, you got Terrifier, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a very fun one. Hell House LLC, I think, is probably the creepiest thing I've seen with a clown.
Would you put Five Nights at Freddy's in this category?
I mean, that's like animatronics coming.
Yeah, I know.
If
But
they're
it's kind of
clowns,
clowny,
sure.
like, right? Anyways.
Carnival horror. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that
because it's kind of I'm lumping carnival horror into that.
Yeah, all right, let's talk carnival horror.
Is that a whole subgenre?
I mean, it could be. You have Santa Sangre, which is you'd probably like that if you've not seen that.
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Jordowski.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting carnival horror movie. And they have those. What am I thinking of? I can't even think of the titles. Where they go to like amusement parks or haunted hay rides and whatever. I mean, that's a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
but there probably could be an argument for carnival horror. Okay, so next is aquatic horror, which is horror that has to do with the water, often elements of sci-fi or Lovecraftian, or they could be straight up shark movies, The Abyss, Dagon, Humanoids from the Deep, Open Water.
The Abyss is great. I actually think this is a genre that could be explored a little more because there's something just terrifying about the ocean, just for its massiveness, its depth, and the fact that it's such a hostile environment to people, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ocean's very fascinating because it's almost like our outer space on Earth.
Yeah. I wonder if you could put Iron Lung into this category.
Is that underwater or is it?
Well, technically
space?
it's in an ocean of blood. So it's and he's in a submarine, so it's kind of underwater, but he's in an ocean of blood on an alien planet.
Yeah. I mean,
battling monsters underwater. So,
it's its own genre, maybe.
Sci-fi horror.
Right. Okay. The next one we got is Cursed, the gift that keeps giving. Or to break the curse, you have to pass it on. So think Ringu, The Ring, It Follows, Smile.
Any number of.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Though I think they get pretty creative with those movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have a good idea, you can get a lot of mileage out of it. Next is possession, when someone or something is possessed. And I think if you hear the word possession, you're going to think exorcism movies. So you have The Exorcist. But there's plenty that are not exorcism movies. So there's Christine, Cursed Car, Talk to Me, right? I mean, Weapons is technically a possession movie that has those elements. When Evil Lurks, these are all things that are not.
The monkey.
That's a cursed item, yeah. Or that's cursed, different than possession. But yeah, so it's interesting because you can look at these subgenres and think it's just one thing, and it's not.
I'm willing to say that those two genres are kind of the same thing, but I see the difference. But like they could probably go together.
They have similarities. Some of them are, I imagine. All right, we got Haunted House, right? Also self-explanatory.
Well, how is this different than Ghost?
Yeah, it's a place that you reside, and I guess that's what's or it can't. It
It's
does
like
not
rooted
always.
in a building
Yeah,
or a
maybe if you
place.
don't live there, you can
Yeah.
live there or not. But some of those movies, House on Haunted Hill, Paranormal Activity, Night of the Demons, which is also a demon and seance movie, which could be their own subgenres as well. But I mean, haunted houses are kind of like a staple. Uh, Next we have extreme. And that's usually the stuff people regret watching because they want to see how disturbing something is. They tend to confront viewers with taboo themes, brutal violence, and they're often bleak. So you have a movie like a Serbian film, Trauma, Faces of Death.
I don't know about Faces of Death. Isn't that more? I mean, it's kind of documentary.
Well, it's what's extreme about it is, I mean, in this day and age, you could probably look it up and find out what wasn't really showing you someone die, because some of them were faked,
Oh, really?
and some of them were actually
That makes me
supposed to
like
be
it even
real.
less.
So,
Next.
they're making that movie this year, and I'm curious how they're going to do it. But as a kid, when you felt like you were getting your hands on something, like very taboo. The Sadness is probably the more recent one, and I would say that was interesting. I say that it's basically like every Misfits lyrics come to life. It's a zombie movie where it's malice, so they're just like mean spirited, trying to fucking do all sorts of awful things to people. Then there's also kind of the French extremity films like Them, Trouble Every Day, Livid, Inside, Irreversible, that are post 2004 when this stuff became the new wave of French horror. Basically, it's like the French version of extreme films that influenced and caused an uptick in this stuff. Gaspar Noé is often associated with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The one who did like that. I mean, he does a lot of like hardcore sex things too, right?
Irreversible was a big one he
Right.
did.
That was actually great.
Climax is one of he did. Into the Void, I think, is his
Right.
other.
I think I was thinking of like Lust or Love, or didn't he do something like that? That's
Possibly.
yeah.
I don't know.
Carry on.
But I think it's also worth noting in the 70s, you have the kind of first wave of extreme movies that were grindhouse exploitation films, not strictly horror, but B movies that were taboo. Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and almost like any 70s movies that were indie in a way, because they're just doing really shocking shit. Pivoting from that, we have creature features, which are, I guess it's an umbrella term for monster movie. It almost feels like a dated term as it's not so commonly used. It's usually where giant beasts are the antagonists or alien creatures. So your King Kong, Dracula, I guess Creature from the Black Lagoon. They're all kind of classics, right? But more modern, I think of like Eight-Legged Freaks, or maybe, I don't know if I'd say Troll Hunter is one, but
yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, I think that any big creature that people are fighting falls in this category.
okay, so we kind of touched on Animal Attack with the eco horror subgenre. I mean, it's Jaws, Crawl. Burning Bright is a fucking wild one. That's also eco horror. That's a tiger trapped in a house during a hurricane with like a woman and her like autistic son or little brother. The fucking tiger in a house, hurricanes out. It's like throwing everything out there.
Right. Does that take place in India?
No, I don't know where it takes place. And Meatloaf is in it, so
Classic.
that's like one of the things I had to watch because I'm like, this is an actual movie, and sure enough, it is. And it's not bad. Like it's entertaining. Snakes on a Plane, I guess you could say, is one, right? Next up, religious horror, which is an emphasis on religion or religious themes.
And then you got a subgenre of like nun horror.
Yeah, nunsploitation.
Nunsploitation.
I mean, with the religious thing, you got Alice, Sweet Alice, Frailty. You'd say End of Days, The Vigil.
What about like Stigmata? That's not really a horror though, is it?
I think it's classified as one. I don't remember liking that. I don't remember much about it.
I mean, at the time I liked it, but I was also like 17 or 18 when it came out. So, but I mean, the soundtrack was fucking banger.
What was on the soundtrack?
It was like Chumbawamba. And shit
Okay. I don't remember. No, I'm thinking of Bless the Child. That's
Stigmata is like this woman who starts getting stigmata, which is like the blood on the wrists, and
right.
like, but she's like having visions. I honestly, it's been so long
But
I
it
barely
starts with that
remember it.
has that. Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm getting those two movies
It kind of
mixed
came out the
together.
same time as Stir of Echoes.
Okay. Okay. Late 90s, early 2000. Okay. So we have gothic horror, right? Often comes out of the 18th, 19th century. Literature may have elements of romance, a Victorian setting, use of fog, the others, Nosferatu, Woman in Black, kind of things, movies like that.
Yeah, would you put some Guillermo del Toro into the like because I often think of gothic romance,
Oh,
which is that a horror genre, and if so, does it fit into this genre?
I think it would.
Yeah,
Crimson Peak, I'm assuming
exactly.
would
Crimson
be
Peak.
that.
I mean, a lot of his stuff it really fall. I mean,
Well, he just
Frankenstein.
his take on Frankenstein, I would guess, is
Yeah, it's definitely a
kind of like
gothic
that.
romance. Because that's what Mary Shelley was like. That was
Yeah.
her jam.
Next is self-explanatory, and it's one of my favorite subgenres, and it's not specifically horror, but in this case it is, and that is Siege. So you have Night of the Living Dead, The Mist, Prince of Darkness, a movie called Siege, which is fucking brilliant.
Wait, isn't that the one with Jean-Claude Van Damme? Or that's Under Siege.
No, Under Siege is what's his fuck? I can't even think. Steven Seagal.
Oh
No, Siege is a Canadian early 80s siege movie where the police are on strike, and these dudes go in, these like fascist types go into a gay bar, and they end up killing someone, so they have to kill everyone, and someone escapes and gets into a neighborhood apartment building he's let in, and these fascist Nazis are all want to attack,
So it's
them.
basically like Green Room.
Yeah, sort of before, but it has a really solid ending. I think the ending.
Would you
of
put
it's
Attack
great.
the Block in this category? I mean, it's also obviously kind of sci-fi.
Aliens?
But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you could say Tremors is one, right? But I mean, like what I like about these and home invasion movies is it's like the suspense is relentless. And again, it's a perfect blend of horror and thriller. So the stakes are through the roof, and you're kind of at the edge of your seat, right? Pressure's on. The next is very similar. Home Invasion, self-explanatory. Wait Until Dark's kind of a classic. The Strangers, Funny Games, The Collector, and Don't Breathe, which they made a sequel to more recently. And Don't Breathe is basically like the inverse of Wait Until Dark, but it's blended with Last House on the Left.
Well, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Where would you put? I forget the exact title, but I think it's just Cloverfield Lane, right? Where would you put that? Because it's funny because it's not really home invasion. I mean, but is it siege? Because it's sort of the opposite, right? You're like stuck in your house because of what's outside.
That's like Trapped is
Trapped.
but it's one location movie, right? For the most part.
Right. But it's like you're stuck in the house though.
Yeah.
You like can't leave.
Yeah. The Shudder, when Shudder came out, I remember they would have little subcategories of how they put things, and
Yeah.
Trapped was one of them, which is kind of like that, where you're stuck with your backs against a wall and how are you going to get out of this position?
Was that a subgenre that we should add?
Trapped. Yeah, I mean we could. It's there's a lot. Cube is one of those.
Yeah.
Or
what's that one? The tower or where there's all these people on top of each other and like the food comes down and
the platform.
The platform.
Yeah, where we're trapped in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Prison movies. Okay, so here's another one. That's I feel like they should make more movies like this because it's just rich for that. But it's horror noir, or what I want to patent as noir.
It's just a little hard to say.
Yeah, it's a little hard. Which is like a cross of horror and film noir. Angel Heart is probably the most well known, but Seconds is I think from the 60s. That's on my list to see, which I have not seen. Which is David Oval told me about that a while ago. As a film horror noir. The Believers is also, I would say, fits that, and The Ninth Gate.
The Ninth Gate, really? I love that film, but I would put that more as like an occult movie.
But it's like kind of it's a horror movie. It's a cult, but he's like, it's got the mystery and the.
I mean, I guess he's kind of investigating, so that makes sense,
right? And because it's not like a hard thing where it has a checklist of everything in a noir,
right, right.
But it blends the elements, I would say, I guess. Next up is liminal horror. Empty abandoned spaces that evoke dread. Think mazes, stairwells, transitional areas. Kind of exploits agoraphobia when you think about it. So you have like The Shining with its mazes and like hallways. It follows with its kind of like dystopian, almost like suburbia. Skinamarink is a more recent one, and the back rooms are coming out that kind of focuses on that. The next is cosmic horror,
Cosmic horror. All right.
which is Lovecraftian existential dread, threats beyond human understanding. Again, you have The Thing, Event Horizon, From Beyond.
Well, like, why aren't these sci-fi horror? Like,
I think
is there a difference between the two?
Because I think cosmic is also of the cosmos. I mean, I think it is a branch of sci-fi horror, but it's also kind of like it's in its own lane.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Would you put Archive 91?
Yeah,
I
I
yeah.
think that would fit there.
I really like that series, actually.
Yeah, it was cool, and then it only had one
Yeah, they
season.
canceled it, fucking Netflix.
Which is always annoying because you're like, well, I wanted to see where the hell this was going.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
You get robbed of that. Next is a very minor subgenre that I have an affinity for, and that's Nazi occult, which involves Nazis and their interest in the occult. The Keep was a Michael Mann one that he disowned, basically, or I think there's a lot of studio interference that kind of messed that up. Still pretty interesting. Blood Creek, the Joel Schumacher movie, Dead Snow, Shockwaves, even Raiders of the Lost Ark has kind of some elements of that.
I was going to make a joke about that, but you already got it in here. So,
What was the joke?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, it does. I wouldn't say it's one of these movies.
Well, it's not a horror, really, but it has
the
that,
ending kind of.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Brings that in. Then we have holiday horror, which is self-explanatory. Black Christmas, Halloween, My Bloody Valentine. Enough of these that there's, or funny enough, I guess, that they came out before Black Christmas, which I always thought was kind of the first one. There's a 1922 silent film called The Headless Horseman that's based on Halloween. Haxan from 1922 also is May Day. The Phantom Carriage from 1921 is New Year's. So it's not a new concept, but after Halloween, you had its success. You had a boom.
Well, we're all like, the holidays are such a prime time for, arguments with your family, and like, there's something about like they're supposedly so happy. So obviously the contrast with making a horror is like right there for the taking. Yeah,
right. And I mean, I have not seen these older ones, so they could just take place on the day, as opposed to being like a big plot point. Next we got horror satire. So you have Dawn of the Dead, Scream, Get Out, American Psycho, The Stuff. I think satire is hard to write, but I think it's great when it's done.
Yep.
So
a friend of mine has a short that he's going to be doing here that's a satire on, it's a horror, but set in the space of like a city government. Like working in the city government.
Okay. Right.
and it's, I read the script. It's pretty good.
I feel like there is a lot of them that are about kind of like, office life that fall into this.
Makes sense. It is also kind of a comedic in a lot of ways.
Right. I mean, how can they not have some sort of comedy to them? Horror Western, which is, self-explanatory.
I feel like there needs to be more of these too.
There is them, but they're not usually great. But yeah, I love horror westerns.
I like all historical horror, really.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, when they're done right.
So you have Cutthroat's 9, which is a big influence on Tarantino's Hateful Eight. You have Ravenous, which is fantastic. Bone Tomahawk's a more recent one that got a lot of attention. Then there's experimental horror, which is Begotten, Eraserhead.
Begotten's so cool.
Yeah, the way that shot is fucking
amazing.
wild.
Yeah.
Tetsu the Iron Man, which is also kind of crazy. I don't. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
It's not like an hour and a half. I don't know if it's like an hour 15 or 45 minutes. It's really cool. It's just chaotic. And then Possum's a more recent one. It's like all those were in black and white. Possum's not, but that's a cool horror movie.
I'd love to do an experimental horror sometime. I mean, I don't know how big the audience is for them most of the time, but like it's just like it would be really fun just to get weird.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of horror movies I think are actually experimental the first time around. You know, the first time you see something, because if you haven't seen that before.
Yeah, but you know, usually I think experimental denotes a bit of
Just
like
going out, going in
non-linear
blind on something,
storytelling and just like
a different approach or something.
yeah, like I mean, honestly, I don't know if you've ever been to Slam Dance, and for the people who have, you know, they have like a experimental horror category for shorts and stuff, and I've gone to them several times, and there's some crazy stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the imagination that goes into that stuff.
Totally.
For
And like
sure.
it's like if you're not leaving going like, what the fuck did I just see? Like
Right. No, experimental films, like, to me, like, not even horror. When I think of those, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna hate this. But then there's some that I really absolutely
right.
love.
They really end up kind of being more like art pieces.
Yeah, they're they're cool, and I'm glad they exist. Next is queer horror, which obviously has gay themes, focus on the otherness or queer coding.
I think that's key for this genre is like I think the queer has to be central to the story in some way. Because you can have gay characters and it's not a queer horror piece, you know.
True. I mean, like, so one that I believe is, but it's not necessarily perceived that way, is Lost Boys.
It's because the Coreys had crushes on each other, right?
Well, Joel Schumacher was gay, and so Corey Haim has a Rob Lowe poster in his room, half topless. You have Timmy Capella all greased up playing the saxophone.
Right.
The back and forth between
Yeah, it's like it's
David
definitely
and
got a
Michael.
some queer coding in there or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, one of the things I was gonna say about Lost Boys as a kid, like, that's one of my favorite movies. And
he's sitting underneath a giant Lost Boys picture right now
yeah,
for you at home.
I mean, that really fucking hit the spot for me. And it made me want to pierce my ear. You know, all the kids, all the characters, the vampire, like, everyone's got.
Yeah, even that's a saxophone player guy. He's like, I mean, he's probably the gayest character I've seen in a horror movie.
So, yeah, I mean, he's not a gay. He was Tina Turner's sax player.
Yeah, I'm just joking, but you know that '80s style. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's hard to tell.
yeah, it really goes for it. But no, so I wanted to pierce my ear, and I did when I was like 12, whatever. But the funny thing that I don't hear talk about anymore is back then, if you pierced your ear, right? If you pierced your right ear, it was say, like, a gay thing.
But
So
is that like an old wives' tale though?
I don't know,
Yeah,
but it was a thing. So, like,
I remember hearing that when I was a kid too.
yeah. So
we're the same age, so
I pierced my left ear, but then as I got more into punk and hardcore, then I pierced both my ears. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
I think people
non-issue.
stopped caring about that at some point, right? I mean, I haven't heard of that in
Right.
decades,
But it was a thing where,
Yeah.
like, my friend Brendan was actually really cool because he's like, oh, people think you're gay. I'm going to pierce my right ear.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I have like a left ear piercing as well, you know?
yeah.
Like, I think
mean, you still have them. They don't go away.
Yeah, I mean, I had plugs, so I think I got holes in both my ears, but I got a couple more in my left ear.
Oh shit, you got.
I had like 3 in my left ear at one point. And then we were at some show together at at Capitol Ballroom or something, and somebody kicked me in the ear and it like fell out.
It's always a bummer because those weren't like super cheap. I had plugs as well at some point.
Yeah, well, I got mine at Claire's, so it was cheap.
Oh, okay. Well, some other queer movies. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 has a lot of that's the big one, right? I mean, I think even Hellraiser, because you know, Clive Barker is gay, and you know, with Lost Boys and Hellraiser, gay directors, gay visionaries. It's interesting because you have the punk fashion, which comes from queer culture, leather, studs, S&M, and then you have the forbidden desires, and all those kind of things emerge in those movies. Swallowed is a more recent queer horror movie that leans way more into it, and it stars, I am blanking on the actor's name who plays Jesse in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. He's in that as well. And May is another one. Jennifer's Body is also considered a queer horror movie. Next we have horror anthologies, as most anthologies tend to be horror. So you got Dead of Night, Creep Show, VHS. There's a late 80s one or late 80s one. I
But
like.
this is I talked about that director earlier.
Yeah, so one of her stories was on VHS 5 because it's a compilation of like
Right,
different
different
directors.
directors.
And then After Midnight's one that I really like. I thought that had a cool wraparound.
This is kind of pertinent to our discussions lately because Last Call, the film that Peter and I have done, is supposed to be the first story in an anthology series, at least how it was originally conceived. And we were going back on and forth on the effectiveness of anthologies and if people like them. And so if you want to stop by our Instagram and
You weigh in on
comment and let
that?
us know what you guys think, I would be curious to hear.
Because I mean, like, yeah, it's anthologies are. I feel like they're exploited a lot of times. They'll be made and it'll just be like slapping 5 random short films together to make a feature, and I don't think that's like doing an anthology justice as opposed to making it all kind of tight knit. But
I like anthologies as series. I don't like them as presented as a film generally. That's my take on it, just because when I go to a film, I want to see a story with depth, but a TV show, I'm checking in oftentimes for one episode, which can be a story and it's satisfying, you know?
I've always loved anthology. I like short stories. I think that's why I like them. Usually seldom is there an anthology where all the stories are just knockouts. I will say that. But sometimes you get something like Creepshow 2 where you have the raft and you're just like, that's the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen. Okay, next one is horror found footage. And it's not surprising that so many found footage movies are horror because it really lends itself to the genre, right? Looks like you have a camera and it looks like you're watching it, so it's so realistic.
Right. You're trying to tap into that
It feels like you're there.
authenticity. Yeah. First person kind of experience. And they're also, I think, pretty common because the barrier to entry and the cost of production can be lower. Like if you look at Blair Witch Project, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what Blair Witch was made for.
I think I have in my head as a memory 40K.
Really?
I could be wrong on that.
That seems a lot for then.
But I think it was shot on film.
Oh, okay. Maybe
I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was video camera.
3 actors and they were probably improvising half.
Well, but you got to keep in mind a lot of money goes in post production.
Right. But yeah, maybe.
Like if they're paying an editor, they're paying the like color and the sound design, and I mean.
Right. Okay. Other found footage horror movies. You have Affliction and Taking of Deborah Logan, which I think is really creepy. It's a good one. So then I would say there's some honorable mentions that are not strictly horror but related. So you have like Ozploitation movies, which are Australian movies.
Which was it? What was Saw Australian originally, or
I don't know.
I'm thinking of Wolf Creek.
No, but I feel like the guys from Saw, it's James Wan, and I cannot think of the other guy who's involved in that, Lee 1L. I feel like he's Australian, though I could be wrong.
Interesting.
We could look this up.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking of Wolf Creek.
Okay.
Which is kind of a torture porn film as well.
Yeah, no, that is, and they made a sequel and a series to Wolf Creek. But so yeah, that I guess would count. I mean, Mad Max is technically an Australian exploitation movie.
Yeah, but it's not horror.
Right. Well, that's why I'm calling it like honorable mention because
Yeah,
it's not exactly in it. The Wake and Fright, Razorback, Fortress is the shit. And
Picnic at Hanging Rock, you might throw in there.
yeah,
it's not really
it
Ozploitation, but
No, right.
it is like kind of got a supernatural
vibe to it.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be set in Australia; it could be anywhere, but
right,
it happens to be
Australia. You have Blaxploitation, which is like other black exploitation films, not specifically horror, but obviously
there are crossovers.
Yeah, and so you have like Blackula and Sugar Hill, Tales from the Hood, Abby, and the horror noir documentary is really good. That gets into some of that stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to check that out. That's worth watching.
Yeah, it's good. It's solid. Then you have war horror, and I mean, war is probably the most horrific thing there is. So, of course, there's horror movies that use war as a setting. The Keep is one of them, as mentioned. Overlord, Death Watch. Come and See isn't considered a horror movie in all the ways these others are, but it's probably one of the most horrific depictions of war ever made. And it's masterful and it's unflinching. Highly recommend it, but it is a brutal ass movie. Then you have backwoods horror, right? Shit that you think of like Wrong Turn. I guess Pumpkinhead would count. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Couple other genres: J horror, K horror, Japanese horror, Korean horror films. There's horror movies about black magic and voodoo and hoodoo. Like we could probably go on for another hour with
For sure.
with these. I just wanted to hit on a bunch of them. And actually, one of my favorite genres is what I would say horror adjacent movies. So they're like movies with the teeth of a horror movie that feel like one without being one. So the movie The Vanishing doesn't strike me as a horror movie, but it feels like one. Straw Dogs, siege movie that's just brutal and panic inducing. Southern Comfort is one. Deliverance. The Sixth Sense often gets considered. I always think of that as a horror movie, though it's not.
Why isn't it? There's ghosts. It fits in the ghost category.
Yeah, but it's considered more of like a thriller. I don't know if that's just how the pop culture wants to
Yeah,
think
just
of
like
it.
The Martian's a comedy.
Yeah, I mean it's that. One more I would just want to shout out if you've made it this far is Brimstone, which is it's not a horror movie, but it's a horror movie. It's a horror western type. It's relentless thriller with Guy Pearce, really well shot. It's devastating as fuck, but it's it was riveting.
Wow. Cool. There's a lot of great information there. Thanks for compiling all that and like walking me through it. I actually, I'm learning a lot when you do these kind of things, so I appreciate it.
Well, this is a lot of front-loaded information on genre stuff.
Well, there's probably someone out there in university who has to do their like term paper on something to do with horror, and this just came in handy. So
yeah, we just it felt like perfect pivot after kind of defining what horror is with David to kind of get into the weeds a little bit with all these, because it really shows you like how
deep it goes. So yeah, and what he's referring to is our last episode. We interviewed David Duvall, who's a horror historian, particularly really interested in, a film historian who's particularly interested in horror, and it's a really great conversation. So go check that out if you haven't yet. And that brings us to the end. But first, is there anything you're looking forward to doing this week or seeing or checking out or?
Well, Redux is out.
Yeah, that's coming out.
Then I'll want to see that.
Yeah, me too.
How about you?
Yeah, that's definitely the top of my list. I want to check out the chain reactions that you've mentioned in the past, which I still haven't gotten around to, but it's on the top of my list. And yeah, there's actually probably a lot of things I want to check out, but that's what comes to mind. That'll bring us to the end of today's episode. Tune in next week where we talk with our friend Taffeta Darling about horror comic books and how you can get into collecting them if you aren't already. For today's show notes, check out our website at nightmarelogicpod.net or follow us on Instagram at nightmarelogicpod. We're your hosts, Christopher Smith and Peter Sawyer. And last, we'd like to thank our composer, Lars Lang Peterson, for our awesome theme. Tune in next week. Until then, goodbye.